This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
Okay, we're good to go whenever you are.
It is 6 p.m. I will now call to order this meeting of the Easthampton Conservation Commission. The meeting is being recorded. This meeting of the Easthampton Conservation Commission will be conducted in person and simultaneously via remote participation online to the greatest extent possible. Every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post on the City of Easthampton website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. Should an interruption occur in which the online meeting ends abruptly, both the in-person and online meetings will not be restarted, and all agenda items will be automatically continued to the next scheduled meeting. Before we get started, I want to note that we have in-person quorum, but we have one commissioner joining us remotely. Dan Buttrick and Sarah Carr may be joining us as well, but I don't see her yet. I also wanted to check commissioners to see if we know whether we're going to have quorum for the meeting on November 28th. I know that I will not be here.
I will not be here also.
Does anybody else know that they will not be here on the 28th?
I thought I was, but it's not going to happen.
Dan, how about you?
I think I'll be there. It is my birthday. I'm disappointed that there won't be people around to help me celebrate.
Oh boy.
As a birthday gift, Dan, we could let you chair.
There you go.
Although the way things are going, I may still be in COVID quarantine by then. So I don't know. Where one of my kids just got over it. She just got cleared, and the other one just 5 minutes ago said, "I got a sore throat."
I'm sorry. And Sarah, how about you? Do you know if you'll be here on the 28th?
I plan on it.
Okay. So it sounds like we may or may not have quorum depending on Dan's situation. But for the moment, if we need to continue anything, we'll plan to continue to the next meeting. All right. Are there any public concerns or non-agenda items?
I've not received any.
Hearing none, we'll move on to our public hearings. The first is a public hearing continued from October 17th for an abbreviated notice of resource area delineation filed by GZA Geoenvironmental on behalf of Stephen Ford Johnson of Sage Advisors for resource area delineation at 385 Main Street, map 154, lot 32, 32.1, and 32.2. We had requested a peer review of the delineation by BSC Group. Do we have someone here to speak to this item? Do you have who we're anticipating?
Matt Byrne here with BSC Group.
Dan Itchy, representing the applicant.
Great. So Matt, could you please give us a rundown of your findings based on your review?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me here tonight. Matt Byrne, I'm senior ecologist with BSC Group. And of course, I don't have the date that I was out in the field with Dan, but myself and soil scientist Ethan Sneesby, who's my colleague, met Dan out in the field. I should have that right there. November 2nd. And we walked through the entire site, went through the dingles and small wetland areas in the woods, and paid particular attention to the wetlands that are out in the open managed fields areas, because those are the ones that are more difficult and more technical to get through. We spent several hours on site. We checked every single flag that was out in the open areas, and we checked probably 70% of the flags in the interior. We had a very productive meeting, and we made some minor adjustments, expanding the footprint of wetlands in the field based on hydric soil indicators on a number of the wetlands, all identified in the letter that I sent out. Since that time, The applicant has made revisions to the site plans based on those revisions that we agreed to in the field. I've checked those plans. Everything comports with what we had agreed to, and so I'm happy to say that the plans look like they are complete and correct at this point.
Great, thank you. Did anyone on the commission have questions regarding the review? Dan, is there anything, Dan Nietzsche, that you'd like to add to that?
No, there was just one comment that Matt had in his preliminary letter identifying a small section of the H series flags as being bank, H21 through H25. That note was added today to that stamped plan. So that's a complete set with, based on Matt's review and Ethan's review, is an accurate representation of the delineation on that property.
Is that the set that I have in the folder here?
Correct, the black and
Okay.
white. And I can post that on the TV if people want to see it that way too.
Yeah, can you pull it up
Okay,
for us?
hold on just a second, everybody. I'm gonna show the one that doesn't have the topographical lines, if that's okay with everybody. Just is a little easier to read. Let's see where. So just so you can all tell, the forest, this is the demarcating where the trees end and open field are. So it's this area and this all area over here. The trees are starting here along this property line. And this is the front area, South Street. Main Street, Route 10 is along here on the south. And this is that. That H series is up here at the front, I believe.
Correct.
That's correct.
And so note number 5 on this plan was an addition to identify the bank flags within that H series. As Cassie and Jay would remember, when we were out there, there was, a fairly good flow of water going through a defined channel leading into the culvert that goes underneath South Main Street. And so that's the bank portion that BSC Group asked us to identify because it's within a larger area that's being referred to as a BVW. So we just called out those few flags. You can see there's sort of a cluster of flags really close together. That implies the channel right there. Yeah, thanks, Cassie. That implies the channel.
And that was actually a point that the Conservation Commission had requested in the hearing that I reviewed that was held on September 26th. That was one of the requests of the commission at that point, as I recall.
So I'm hearing that GZA and BSC are in agreement on the placement of the flags at this point.
Yes.
Yes.
Excellent. Any questions from the commission? Commissioners online, any questions?
Nope.
Right.
I looked at all the documents. They look fine.
Would anyone care to make a motion? Our options are to determine that the boundaries are accurate as described on the reference plans above and in the abbreviated notice of resource area delineation for BVW and other resource areas, which we can indicate that we need to modify them or that they're inaccurate.
I'll make a motion that the boundaries and delineation is accurate.
And so we have bordering vegetated wetlands, and we also have bank flags. Is there anything that I'm missing, Dan?
No, we show a little bit of riverfront, but it's way back in the far end of the property. We're not asking for that to be confirmed. So just BVW and bank.
Yeah, I was just going to ask about that. So riverfront is kind of like estimated off of approximately where the river is, and it's not going to be not something you're asking for.
Correct.
All right, so we have a motion to confirm as accurate the bordering vegetated wetlands and banks. Do we have a second? All those in favor, roll call vote. August?
Aye.
Weeks?
Aye.
Whittemore?
Aye.
Ryan?
Aye.
Buttrich?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, so I have to complete that paperwork online through EDEP. So I'll get that sent to everybody that way. And it should be, I can virtually sign that
Okay.
for all of you. So I should be able to get that to you very quickly. Dan and Mark.
Great.
So
Thank you.
we're waiting on for that.
So you don't want us to pass around for signature?
I don't know. I normally just, did I print it out that way? Or is that the request? Is that the ORAD or the NRAD?
This is the order. This is
Oh,
the order.
then yeah, go ahead and sign it
Okay.
and then fill it out how you want to fill it out. And then if I have to do it in EDP, then I'll do it that way too. I'll make it right. So I'll send you all the final copy.
Thanks, Cassie.
No problem.
Bye, Mark.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure working with you, and yeah, look forward to future opportunities.
Aye.
And
Good night.
thank you.
Aye.
Good Matt.
Thank you.
Cassie, I assume everything's in order for the financial side of the peer review.
Correct. Yeah. It's all worked out. Excellent. Thank you.
The rest of that, if you want to say. All right, moving on, our next public hearing is for a request for determination of applicability by Green Seal Environmental LLC on behalf of Solect Energy Development for installation of a new solar array at 10 Goslin Drive, map 130, lot 24. Request filed on 10/24/2022. We have someone here to speak for this matter?
Good evening. Yes, Greg Worson from Green Seal Environmental representing Select Energy Development. I haven't used Google before, so can I just hit the present button if I want to show plans?
That's right. I just added you as a co-host. So down at the bottom with the,
Oh, wonderful. Yeah, I got it.
yeah. Go right ahead.
Okay. Let me know when it pops up.
Almost there. Yep, looks good.
All right. We have a couple sheets that we're requesting a determination of applicability for a ground-mounted solar array. I just wanted, before I get into the site plan, just for reference, we have a little aerial here. I believe the agent walks the site with one of my cohorts, Jose Pichardo, a week or so ago. So the area where we intend to develop is kind of to the northeast of the clarifiers to the wastewater treatment plant. And I'll switch over to the So what we intend to develop is an approximate 357 kilowatt DC ground array mounted on concrete ballasts. The concrete ballast will be used not only for the solar array, but also for the fencing. I can slide over to the photos. So if you see here, the fencing will go on concrete blocks. Inverters will go on concrete pads, as well as the cable trays will be run on concrete blocks. So there's really no significant grading or land disturbance associated with the development, at least with inside the resource areas. So the blue dotted line is the outer riparian area of the riverfront, and then the yellow line is the 100-foot buffer zone. So as you can see in the very north western corner of the site, we will have a little bit of fence associated with the array, as well as to the northeast corner of the site. The fence line and all the development will be outside of the 200-foot riparian area. We will, any disturbed areas will be, raked, new loam put down, and do a native hydroseed mix. If there's any disturbance just associated with equipment use, we don't intend to grade or defoliate or anything like that. I think there was a question about invasive species. If the board so wants to condition that the tires of the heavy equipment are washed prior to coming to the site, certainly we could accept a condition such as that. With respect to erosion control, we intend to put wattles around the site in the area of construction, just generally right outside the fence line. We don't have to go too far since there's no grading associated with the project. What else is this? And the reason why we're using it, it is a capped sludge monofill, historically used by the wastewater treatment plant. And there was an isolated wet area associated with the site. I'm assuming that is just because of the capping. Usually when you cap these type of things, you use a very clayey soil, like 10 to the -7 transmissivity. So we do have the fence line going through the non-jurisdictional wetland, but we don't have array being mounted in there. And I think with that, I'll just open it up to some questions. I'm sorry, I wasn't the one to do the site visit. About 3/4 of my staff is away for training, so I drew the straw on this one.
Greg, can you speak to the potential impacts to stormwater?
Potential impacts of stormwater, there shouldn't be any at all. Usually these solar arrays, because we're just going on the grass and the infiltration is going to happen right there. We're not trying to shed the water. It will fall through the panels, so it could be a little more concentrated if you have a heavy rain, but we don't expect any erosion or scouring associated with the arrays. So with respect to stormwater, if we were doing some grading, then I would probably want to do some form of vegetated swale around the site. But since we're not really doing any grading or reestablishment of much or any vegetation, we didn't feel that we would have to do anything associated with stormwater.
What will the height of the panels be?
Height of the panels, that's a good question. And I did see it somewhere on the plan. Generally, just speaking from my experience, usually the lower side is somewhere between 24 and 30 inches, and probably the tall side is, 6 or 7 feet. But I don't have an exact detail of what racking system they're actually using here. I'm just looking at all the notes in the plans, and I don't believe that they gave a detail, unless it's on the first page, but I doubt it. I'm assuming though that on the low side, just with respect to snowfall and things like that, that they're going to want a minimum of 24 inches on the low side, could be upwards of 30. certainly if you want a racking detail, we can certainly forward it to the board. And just to note, we do have to go through planning board, so finalized plans as well as I'm assuming that racking profiles will have to be provided to the planning board, and I'm assuming that there'll be departmental circulation associated with that planning board submission.
Do you know if the intent is to have vegetation maintained under all of the panels?
I'm assuming that they're going to have to do mowing for two reasons. One is that you don't want any tree growth associated with the panels, but also you don't want any tree growth associated with the protection of the cap. So I'm assuming that there was a mowing regime historically associated with this area, and I'm sure that maintenance of that will have to happen with respect to just the protection of the panels, sunlight, and everything like that. I know on a few solar arrays that I personally own, I mow twice a year.
So it looks like all of the proposed work is outside of resource areas proper. And you just have the two areas of fencing that extend into the
Correct.
100 foot. Is that correct?
Yeah, right where my cursor is, and then this little small area right here. Everything else is at the limit of the resource areas or within.
So given that we don't have the extent of our jurisdiction would be whether we expect there to be impacts that would flow to the wetland resource areas from the work that you're doing outside, which is why I'm interested in the stormwater impacts. Dan, do you have anything to add, being our stormwater expert?
No, not really. I don't think there's really a high risk of any significant impact here.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from the commission?
I have one that was from the site visit. I remember, I think Jose was saying he was gonna look into this. One was for, there is that one big willow that's up on top of the cap.
Oh,
Is
yeah.
that
Yeah.
trimmed at all, or
Let me just
is within the jurisdiction area? The
yeah,
willow.
let me just, I believe it's, I'm gonna start sharing the screen again. Hang tight. I believe that the willow is somewhere in this area. Just looking at pictures that Goddard Consultant did with the wetlands. But if you can enlighten me, I believe that it's to the north of the array.
Yeah.
And a northerly tree shouldn't impact shading associated with the array. I think that, you know, I don't know if, do you guys give any conditions on an RDA?
Yeah,
Ever?
that's possible.
Yes.
I would say that if there's a field call associated with either pruning or more so with the tree, that they would have to call the agent for a site walk and a visit and explain what needs to be done. But as it stands right now, because it's I believe it's to the north of all the arrays, and you know the azimuth really is east-west, that it really shouldn't impact. Do you recall when you did the site work where the tree was? I'm thinking that it was somewhere up in here, though.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, it might even be farther north than that.
Yeah,
Really
if it's to the north of the fence line, unless there was something really hanging very, you know, towards the fence line, I can't see that how that would impact production at all.
Okay.
So, you know, certainly a condition associated with if they do have to do anything to the tree to call the agent, have a site visit. But you know, I believe that they would, well, we could talk about it through the, you know, the planning board hearing. But as it stands right now, our client hasn't said that the tree has to come down. And we weren't provided any of the shading analyses or anything like that. But a northerly tree in my book is generally a good thing.
Do you think that's actually located in resource areas?
The tree?
Yeah.
I think the tree is, it might be even farther back away from the fence, but
Well, if it's way back by this 100-foot buffer zone, then it definitely won't need to be touched. I'm just trying to look at the scale of this. It's,
I think if you really want to know, we could look at like mass map or aerial imagery.
yeah, because, you know, yeah, if it's backed by this wetland line, you have 40 feet from the circumference of the tree to the fence line, and then another 10 feet to the panels. So I just can't see it happening, especially if it's in a resource area. That's pretty far back.
Yeah, I don't think we thought there was impact because of the north of the panels.
Correct.
And it was quite a distance.
Yeah,
Right.
Okay.
we were just making sure. Well, were there any fence lines within the buffer zone or?
Just those two corners as they
Can you
presented
point
it.
that out?
Yep. Yeah.
Southern edge.
Yep. Just the southwestern and southeastern corners of the fence are the only areas that would be within the resource areas. To the north, I believe, yeah, the fence line's way outside of the 200-foot outer riparian area.
So even those areas of fencing, are they high enough for wildlife passage?
Like, is there a gap underneath?
Is there, yeah, is there?
Well, I mean, not if you're talking turkeys, but if you're talking, you know, like a box turtle or everything, let me blow this fence up because it will actually give you a pretty good picture of how the fence is mounted.
I see.
And so there'll be some areas, but you know, you do want to bring the fence down just associated with, you know, any form of trespassing where it's easier to crawl under the fence. We're still dealing with DC current here. So there is certainly electrical hazard associated with, you know, let's say a kid getting in there or something like that.
But recently, I think the recommendation is at least 6 inches. So,
Yeah, and certainly that with respect to the fence, because I'm seeing how they cut this chain link fence down. So, you know, if they did it, you know, 6 inches level with, you know, between block to block, they can certainly do that. So if you want to condition something like that, I think that's fine.
I'm not even 100% sure that we have jurisdiction to keep that we're talking about the edge of the buffer zone and not restricting any animals in our resource areas.
correct. That makes sense to me. I had one more question. On the mass mapper, and we talked about this briefly at the site visit, we were curious if the natural heritage and endangered species layer encroached on where this is. It might be small enough that it doesn't even go into that area. And Jose was going to double check on that.
You know, I do have the wetland report, and I believe that they did do.
Oh yeah, I should have that too.
They do have a NESHAP plan, where, just trying to look, there is some priority habitat associated with the Manhan River. However, if I'm looking at that, I can actually open it up. If I'm looking at the way that it's mapped, I think it's mapped associated that it extends out to the outer riparian area. But I can actually open up that plan.
I don't think it's necessary because that's also not our jurisdiction, but just for
Okay.
your sake, you'll want to make sure that you're doing anything you need to do to coordinate with MS.
Correct. Loud and clear.
I just had a brief question about whether the trucks that are going to install these solar panels will go anywhere near the wetland areas. I don't know the road situation.
No, they're actually going to stage. I should bring up the plan. No, they're not. I mean, the trucks really are going to seat the concrete pads. So in the area where you saw where the array panels are, and then We'll also need probably, what the form trucks, like when they have a precast truck and they have the crane. I'm assuming that they're going to go around the peripheral of the property and drop the blocks associated with the fence. So everything would be done, from the inside versus the outside in. So we're gonna work within our limits of work and not go to the
More
outside.
like on the way before you get to the area that you showed us.
No, they'd enter the treatment area and
There's a road right from the treatment area.
yeah, we're gonna make our driveway up there, and we actually have some trenching that we need to do to the revenue grade production meter, and then we have there's going to be a gate. Let me just might take a second to open up, but
It looks like your entrance is through the area that's shaded blue.
that's correct. That's going to be the driveway and the gate. So that's both outside the 100-foot buffer zone as well as the outer riparian area.
Great.
Do you want me to bring up the plan? You want to see the plan? Sarah?
I don't think it's necessary unless Sarah really wants to see it.
No,
Okay.
I'm just asking the question. I
Yeah.
believe you. So,
No problem.
So we ask maybe this, yes, is that a percent in the area? The resorts area,
The only place we would have any authority would be the two tiny corners.
the question.
Can we make a decision on this without having it be in front of planning yet, or should we wait until after planning is taken a shot at, changes occur, or?
We can respond to the RDA as proposed.
Okay,
If for some reason changes were to come back after
Drastic
planning,
changes.
that
or
would
something?
put work into the resource areas, we'd have to reevaluate, but we can evaluate the plan as shown.
Yeah, if anything, it would be scoped down, not scoped up. So
That's typical. Commission's review is first and then it goes to everybody else, so.
And Kathy, if we're saying that we don't have jurisdiction issuing a negative determination, I assume planning would handle stormwater.
Yeah, if there needs to be a stormwater permit issued, then yes.
Okay.
My understanding, I think, that the area is small enough though that it might not even trigger the need for a stormwater permit.
But planning
Yep.
will.
And we also have to understand that this entire area we're developing has 10 to the -7 soils. So it's not like we can dig into the former sludge area and create. If we had to do something with stormwater, we would actually have to shoot it way down towards the wastewater treatment facility or channel it some way down there. But if, when we walked the site and the wetlands folks walked the site, we didn't see any scouring or erosion or slumping or anything like that. So we believe that by maintaining the existing topography and making sure that the vegetation, it remains the vegetation, that stormwater is going to be controlled as it is today.
So we're ready to issue it.
Issues we want to talk about, washing tires or something that kind of came up a little bit. That's that critical for those two little corners.
I don't feel that it is. Anyone care to make a motion?
Make a motion of negative determination number 2. Second.
So the motion is that the work described in the request is within an area subject to protection, but will not remove, fill, dredge, or alter that area.
That's correct.
I think we actually want to type 3, that the work described in the request is within the buffer zone,
Okay.
but will not alter an area subject. to
Well, I thought
protection.
3, if you did 3, that was with the conditions.
You don't have to have them. You can if you want.
You don't have to get them.
Then I'll revise the motion to negative determination number 3. Second.
All those in favor, roll call vote. August? Weeks?
Aye.
Whittemore?
Aye.
Ryan?
Aye.
Patrick?
Aye.
Barr?
I
Carries.
Thank you. Thank you for your
Okay,
time.
so they're gonna sign it here. No problem. And I will email it to you, the final permit, if that's all right, and I can mail it physically. We can figure it out, the details later.
Yeah, no, yeah, that's fine. Just, you have Jose for the contact. Just ship it over to him and, it'll make less work for me.
Sounds good.
Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Have a nice night.
Bye-bye.
Cassie, I did not mark off whether that's gonna be hand delivery or certified mail.
Oh, yeah, I'll deal with it. 'Cause that, yeah, it's gonna be like both. Or it'll be mail, I guess. Thank you.
All right. Moving on, request for certificate of compliance, 45 and 47 Platt Street, map DEP file number 1510159, for construction of 2 single-family homes and a common driveway, map 113 and 112, lot 21 and 1. Request filed 10/19/2022. Do you have anyone here for this matter?
And if you can just
Please
state your
introduce
name.
yourselves for the record.
Gunnar B. Johnson at 47 Platt Street.
And his brother Trigby Johnson, TRYGGBI, Johnson, JONSSON, at 45 Platt Street.
Excellent, thank you. Did you have anything that you wanted to present to us, or?
We did do some as-built grades, actually, just sent you.
Oh, did you? Okay.
The grade.
Yeah, if you want me to, I can give him a little brief explanation if that's all right. Okay, let me refresh here and see if I can get that email you sent me.
I'm gonna send around the sign-in sheet.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
So for background, this was an order that was issued in the 90s.
Correct, 1997.
For construction of 2 homes. There has since been an RDA as well. And remind me what that work was for, Cassie.
So my understanding is that they got the permit in 1997 for the 2 houses, 45 and 47. That permit then expired without finishing 45 yet. So they got an RDA for the remaining house. And the RDA plan, you know, the whole project, primarily the big pieces for the certificate of compliance includes the major impacts that were to the BVW area are associated with the shared driveway. The shared driveway resulted in some fill of BVW and some bordering land subject to flooding. And so the mitigation required for that was a wetland replication area equal to the size of the fill, and then a compensatory storage area for the floodwaters equal to the size of the floodplain that was lost. Everything else looks like it was built in compliance with the original design for 47. 45 looks like it's generally built in compliance with the RDA, which had some changes compared to the original order. But it was approved through the RDA. So, I don't know which one. Yeah.
Pull this up for the
Yeah.
Ryan folks.
No, just a second. Are you looking at the plan for the RDA or for the?
I think this is the original.
Okay.
Is there a date down there?
That looks like the original.
Okay.
August 97. Yeah, that's the
Excellent.
original.
Let me share that plan for y'all. And my screen. Okay, so zooming in a bit. Here are the 2 houses. So it's kind of sandwiched between 2 resource areas. Up to the north here, which is kind of the back of the lot, there is BBW and then a kind of a hill that goes down to it. You go up the hill to the houses. That's the extent of the 100-foot buffer zone shown here, with both houses kind of encroaching on that slightly. And then below is the other resource area, which kind of travels through the front of their yard. Clap Street here is to the south. This is where the majority of the fill occurred, or all of the fill occurred, which is associated with this driveway here. One deviation from the plans is that originally it proposed one 12-inch diameter pipe. Instead, there are two to allow more conveyance of water. So not necessarily a problem because they didn't restrict the conveyance of water between the two. Though a change from the original plan. Over here to the right of the plan, you can see this kind of dotted area was the wetland replication area. And then beyond that is the compensatory storage area. And combined with that and beyond it is the compensatory storage. And so the key factor for both those is the elevations. And I know, I don't know if it's come up through my email yet, but you said, oh, here it is. You were able to get those grades. Let's see here. And well, can you just describe how you got those?
Yeah, basically we worked off the elevations that we had from Jim Gracious' plan. Jim eventually became the town engineer after he did this drawing. So we picked one of the heights and then we just shot grades from that and just double checked the elevations that were on the plan and compared it to what we actually found. We're not professional engineers, but we've done a lot of work with that type of thing, and I think give or take, we're thinking we're really close on to the as-built.
We took the measurements from the markings where Jim had elevations, and we tried as close as we could to get his points. And what they show is that it's very close, if not better than what he expected.
So the reds are the things that we have. So he stipulated like a 122 or 121, 120.5 versus 120, 120, 25 again. So point being that it does drain nicely and very, very, very slowly. So we don't have I think the whole idea was to make sure that we didn't have the water surge down to the river any faster than it ever did. And by and large, we've seen that in storms, and we actually have some photos that we did find of past storms.
So if I may approach them.
Please.
Thanks again thank you very much for meeting with us. So here's if you'd like to see our markings are in red and they correspond very closely to the other. Well, there was a storm in January of 2010. And it was very surprising or amazing to me to see the compensatory storage outline was exactly as So we took pictures of series of pictures, and there are a number of pictures that show it, and the drainage or compensatory storage really fits exactly what Jim drew. And it took a couple of days anytime it rains heavily, it takes a while for the water to go down. And then in the spring and in the fall, let me get that through here if you like.
So basically that has to be the worst storm we've ever faced.
Yeah. But it was just unbelievable to see it follow his contour so much, and that's exactly where we set the pins. It plugged it to the top of the driveway, and the good thing is that it doesn't flow into that. Well, you can only get so much into a 12-inch pipe that goes into the street at any point. But it doesn't gush, it doesn't, we've never had any erosion. We keep the tunnel.
Yeah, that was the
Runs
last.
very slowly. And this was just a spring.
No, the other day, 2 days ago. Okay. So it gathers, and that's the other part here, gathers on my side before it enters the drains. And then this is the outflow.
So our impression was you want the down slope flow. And this, to keep it clean. So that's what we, I think we've accomplished.
It's just a bit.
Yes, just the
We
other.
also have some photographs from Mark Lavalley from Florence when he dug. We disturbed as little as we could. And the houses are in the back. But he had to scoop this out, the compensatory storage. So you see him actually, that's the only reason he opened that. And then we restored things back. And so basically the grass that's in the front there in the wetland area is basically the same as it was when we moved, started the work there. On the other side of the ditch were the lowest points towards the street. The bulldozers never touched that. So the vegetation is the same as it was before this was mowed. And it was hay, it's been hay for probably 60 years. Before then, it was farmed according to our neighbors.
So the neighbor actually owned his parents owned it, the Warnocks. They had owned that street from the 1930s. And they all say that they remember the ponding there on the heavy rains. In fact, when we were shooting the grades, one other neighbor said, yeah, that's exactly where it ponded. So I think we basically kept the ponding and didn't force any additional water.
You mentioned that you have experience with surveying. Can you speak a bit more to that?
Basically, not surveying, but we are builders, have built houses. We built by hand those houses, as well as others in Amherst and Hadley and elsewhere. It's just one of those things you learn to shoot a grade because you have to shoot a grade. So that's, we don't have any fancy tools. We didn't have the GPSs or anything like that to point it, because we just went off an elevation that point in the height in the road that Jim Gracia indicated to be the height, and then we went physically point to point in the yards, just measure how much below that grade it was and just translated it into it. So it's give or take a few inches.
And are you using a survey level or just eyeballing it?
No,
survey level.
Yeah, level, yeah, a good transit, transit.
So, and Cassie, when you went through the order, everything else was consistent with the site visit.
That's
Our
correct.
concern was just checking that the elevations were appropriate for the wetland areas and that storage storage. Is that correct?
That's right. Any of the deviations are compensated for in the RDA that they got later.
So I think, and did we specifically ask for as-built?
I think that we did, but the commission has been flexible that in the past of requiring that, just for, particularly for single family homes if it's already been done, and they never got those originally.
Yeah, so this is another of these situations where we have an old order coming up on 30 years that was never closed, and this is a bit of an interesting case because we did have specific elevations that we needed to hit. That would be the thing I'd be looking for in the as-built. I'm not particularly concerned with the exact locations of the homes relative to the wetland resource areas, since they were just barely into the buffer zone as it was. I'm interested in others' thoughts on whether we're comfortable with the assessment of elevations that was done. For those who are on the screen, the photos that were passed around pretty clearly demonstrate that ponding is happening in the areas where we would expect it to in large events. So that combined with the numbers that we're seeing, it all makes sense. But normally on an as-built, it would be stamped by an engineer. And so that's the discrepancy that I'd like others to put on.
I'm not super concerned about it. I went out there, I couldn't go on the site visit, but I went out there the next day. And it looks like that. I didn't take any elevations, but
I think the documentation that's been provided shows that the design intent was more or less met and still, worked properly despite the passage of time. So I think it's worthwhile accepting it and then moving on.
Any other thoughts?
I don't have any concerns, but I also am not an engineer and I don't know if I know enough to know whether I should be concerned. So I abstain from that.
It's okay without a surveyor's.
Well, this is the original plan. So this was stamped as expected.
so we have to assume the numbers are correct on that.
Right, and we don't have a full as-built, but as Kathy said, often with some of these orders that were never closed. I mean, we try to do a better job now of making sure that orders get closed and the follow-up is done. And that we're requesting the as-built to make sure that we get them. For these old ones where none of us, I don't think any of us were here in 97, right? None of us were here or have direct knowledge of the project. And in this case, you are the builders, but generally the builders are long gone. And so we have been lenient in other cases with how we've responded to some of the specific conditions in those orders where people are coming to close decades after the fact.
I guess if we've required it in other situations, will it look like we're showing bias if we don't require that here?
I think the point we're making is that we have not required it in other cases with these projects.
We've let it go on older ones.
Okay.
It's something that should have been requested, 25 years ago and never was.
Yeah.
If I may, I'd like to apologize. This kind of stuff that is slipped where so many other things we're doing and just slipped our minds and then it came up.
25 years after the fact. You don't want us adding soil or taking soil away. That would just
Right, and
destroy it.
that's another thing.
Yeah.
Yes, it's stable. I don't think it would do anybody any good to
No,
disturb it.
it looks
And
stable.
normally we don't have the original applicants here even to talk
Yeah.
about it because it's, the house has been sold 3 times and it was never caught that there was still an order open. So yeah, I agree. I don't have any concerns. It clearly appears to be functioning as expected.
Nope. My mother-in-law grew up and lived a mile away. Heard no issues.
Excellent. Would someone care to make a motion then to issue the certificate of compliance?
I'll make a motion that we issue the certificate of compliance for 4547 Clap Street.
Do we have a
Second.
second? All those in favor, roll call vote. August? Weeks?
Aye.
Whittemore?
Aye.
Ryan?
Aye.
Patrick?
Aye.
Carr?
Aye.
Motion carries. There weren't any ongoing conditions we needed to flag, were there, Cassie?
I can double check. I don't think so. Let me double check. I really don't think so. Nope. No in perpetuity conditions here. So once they're done signing it, I'll scan it
Yeah.
and give you the original copy, so you can take that with you. And then
Okay.
I'll send a copy to DEP and keep
Okay.
one on file, and you should be good to go.
Okay, very good. So we don't have to register it or that.
I don't know if you need to go to,
Who register now?
I think you would take it to the registry of deeds, and they'd be like, and you would say, we'd like to remove the order of conditions associated with this, and then you can show them that, and they, I've not personally done it myself, but they should
Yeah,
know.
I've done stuff like that.
Okay, okay,
It's,
yeah,
Great, appreciate
no problem.
Yes.
appreciate the professionalism too. I mean, it's,
Cassie has this
guys are
electronically.
good.
Yeah, oh no, it's,
You have this electronically.
yes, Trigby just sent it to me. I don't have the pictures. You can send it
Yeah,
if you
we can
want, it's okay.
send you the pictures.
Yeah, I mean, it might be nice to have in the record.
It would be helpful if you
Yeah.
could send the pictures.
Yeah, I'll send.
Okay,
You want the whole set now? You can have.
Where I can send the
If you send them
electronic.
electronically,
Okay.
that would be even better. Thank you.
yeah, yeah, you don't need, you can keep the nice versions.
Thank you.
Our paper files are
Well, yeah, so,
expensive and,
Yeah, we're just happy we found it.
Well, thank you so
No
much.
problem.
Pictures.
yeah.
and if you, once they're done signing, I'll scan it
So
and give
thank
it to
you
you.
again.
So just hold on a
Thank you.
second and I'll give it to you. Excellent, thank you. Okay, I have to get back.
Yes, where was the solar field located? There are two people. What was the address on that?
It's 10 Goslin. It's on the property that is the city's wastewater treatment
I
plant.
was wondering if I could picture where that was.
Yeah, it's tucked back. I mean, probably most people will never see that.
Never know where it is. Yeah, never know where it is.
How many megawatts?
I
Or how many-
don't
they said
remember off the top of my head.
Three. I think that's what they said.
So it's,
Three.
so it's a good size. Is that for the town or for?
I assume it would be for the
counties.
town.
Super.
That's great use of a location, that
Mhm.
location.
Yeah. that's-
We probably want this stuff there.
Yeah.
that?
Solar on landfills is the kind of solar we like to see.
Yeah.
Off of Ferry Street, right?
Yes. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
All right, good night.
Wait just a moment and we'll give you the copy of the. Oh, sure.
They're by them.
So if there's any questions in the registry, just let me know. They wanted it tomorrow.
Thank you very
No
much.
problem, have a nice day.
Thank you all. Good night.
Thanks, Kathy. Oh, here's the folder. Okay, sorry.
Enforcement action.
Yeah, we can skip right down to 4D and then anything else.
Great. And I think we have both Dan and Emily present.
Yes, good evening,
Yep.
Emily here.
Yep, and Dan's here too.
So this is item 16, 93 Northampton Street rear, map 128, lot 113, enforcement order 2022-003. And for a brief recap, we had a peer review performed by Emily Stockman. There's been some back and forth, and I think at this point, we are hopefully in alignment on the resource areas, but I don't want to speak for our consultant.
Hi, Kathy. This is Emily. Can you hear me okay?
Yes,
Yeah.
we can hear you.
Great. Yeah, so as you had mentioned, there's been a little back and forth on this project. We had originally gone out in August with the goal of reviewing the site conditions and comparing them in part to a 2005 boundary establishment that had been before the commission. And upon our original assessment in August, it was our opinion that there were additional bordering vegetated wetlands that had not been recently delineated. And those were wetlands that had been altered by agricultural practices. Subsequent to those findings and discussion during that public hearing, Dan had an opportunity to go back out and onto the property and reset the 2005 BBW boundary with pin flags. So just last week, I think it was Tuesday, November 1st, I was able to go out to the site with Dan. There were also a couple of the applicant representatives with us on the site. And we reviewed the pin flags in the field, evaluating the soils as well as vegetation where it was less altered, made some minor adjustments in the field based on either hydrophytic vegetation or observed hydric soils. 14 flags were set in the field. Subsequent to my review, Dan went through the process of labeling those flags and also continued on and delineated the down gradient channel. So this was a channel that prior to this revision was shown as non-jurisdictional due to a lack of wetland, but subsequent to the peer review and field discussion, a wetland was found, thus the down gradient channel was jurisdictional. So I believe that Dan has hot off the presses today, an updated surveyed site plan that will show the resource areas I was just describing.
Would you like me to show that, Commission, or can I do that, Cassie?
I've set you as a co-host, Dan. You should be able to go ahead.
Okay.
And just as you're getting that going, Emily, the latest I have in the folder and correspondence from you was August 25th. Is that correct, or should there be a more recent letter?
No, unfortunately, I got a draft plan from Dan, but just on Friday, and this latest plan just came in today. So I haven't had an opportunity to provide follow-up written comments, but I knew I'd be before you here this evening to report.
And just so the commission understands, the revision that was sent today is exactly the same plan. But what we discovered in one part of the original delineation, we had another D series flags, D1 through D5, which some of the members on this commission reviewed with me a couple of years ago for an off-site property. It was down in this sort of dingle or drainage area. And because this latest flagging we just did with Emily, I also labeled that, unfortunately, I labeled that a D series. I just asked the engineer to change the labeling from a D1 through D5 to an E1 through E5. There's been no change in any flag position, just the labeling, just so there's not redundant flag numbers on the site is all. So that was be over by Plymouth Avenue. So if you're looking at the plan, and Cassie, how do I open that up? Oh, there we go. Beautiful. I think this is this us?
We're not seeing anything yet, Dan.
All right.
And then.
Oh,
and Kathy, that newest plan is not in here either, is it?
That's the wrong map. I apologize. That's the wrong map.
It is 139.
This is our map here. Can you see this?
No.
Okay. Thank you. Let me try that again. Window. 385 Main Street. Where the heck is that? This doesn't work as well as Zoom, unfortunately.
I agree. If you want to email it to me, Dan, I can try to do it on my end.
I emailed it to you today, Cassie.
Okay, then I might already have it. Hold on a second. Sorry.
Yeah, thank you.
This is the one. Let's see.
It's no different than no different than what was sent on Friday. I just wanted to make sure that the map was very clean and there was no redundant flag numbers anywhere on the map.
Yes, I think I have it here, Dan. Let me share it real quick.
Thank you.
No problem.
And just while Cassie's bringing that up, we also asked Emily, or Emily offered, I should say, to be honest, offered to look at the other area that we were in question at the last meeting. Is there a way of showing my cursor?
Unfortunately not. Is
Okay,
it?
all right. So basically, you see the D9, D10, D8 flags. Right, thanks, Cassie. So to the right of that, you see the contours are creating sort of a U shape. That implies a U facing down the hill towards the river. There you go. So in there, we had, as the commission members, we had flagged that, or I had flagged that back in 2005. And Emily was willing to look at the soil area between that area that was previously identified as a wetland on the tree line before the wetland area transferred into a dingle or drainage ditch along the slope. And we discovered, and she can speak for herself, but it's my understanding, we looked at that and discovered that that was non-hydric soil separating potentially an isolated wetland to the drainage area. So that's just while the map was coming up. So this area, the area that Cassie was just showing with the D8, D9, D10, that whole series, D1 through D14 are all the replaced flags. D6 is a slight adjustment that was done when Emily came last week, and we moved that out to accommodate that particular location. But D14 brought us right down to the drainage or the channel that was in the bushes. And then I continued flagging down along the drainage way that we all looked at when we were looking at the isolated wetlands many months ago. And I carried that flag system all the way down to the flagging I had done before, C2, the C1 and C2 area. C1 is partially a BVW, but C2, C3, C4 is a continuation of the bank resource. So D15 through D22 is bank, continuing to the C series and continuing all the way down. I believe that drainage continues all the way to the Manhattan River eventually. So we've finished that off. That represents the 2005 delineation that we have. So the D series is slightly modified from 2005, but this bank, as you folks saw, the commission members that were there when we walked this several months ago, that's a very strong defined channel in that D15 through D22. So that was continued down along there. So now we can project a buffer zone into the project site. Thanks, Cassie.
No problem.
So we end at the D1, and you see on the D1, we have a line that goes over onto the adjacent property. Based on I didn't have permission to be off site just yet, although in the near future I will be working for Matt Gall to be delineating that adjacent property. And so what we did is we just showed one line of the delineation at D1 going into the Gall property. We believe it goes into the Gall and then into the Gall property, and then radiuses or turns and goes down the hill. But until I get out there and start flagging it, obviously I'm not comfortable showing what that shape is. And we really only had the rights to be doing our delineation on the other side, on the right-hand side of that property line.
Emily, anything further you'd want to add to that?
No, other than that I can confirm that while we were looking at those flags, D1, D2, and D3, there were also some property line stakes that had been placed. So it was quite apparent that we were right along that property line. And we did investigate soils outward from those flags and confirmed with their placement based on observing upland soils and what is mapped as a buffer zone in those locations.
Thank you. So I believe, Cassie, that we have completed everything that was in the scope for the peer review, correct?
That's my understanding.
Right. Just reviewing the terms of the enforcement order. So I think at this point, the question that we were trying to answer with the peer review was whether there were potentially other impacts to resource areas that were not being picked up because we weren't previously considering that upgradient area to be jurisdictional. We now know that it is because we found the upgradient wetland that goes with it. There has been over time the encroachment into the wetlands within the agricultural field, which would have been in violation. And there's the potential now that we have violations in some of those areas that we were viewing as isolated, which are now potentially immediately adjacent to this newly flagged bank. So I think what we need at this point is revisions to the restoration plan to address those additional impacts that have been identified. Does that sound appropriate? Dan, can you give us an update on the status of the elements of the restoration plan that we had already agreed upon?
I don't recall talking about a restoration plan other than the bridge crossing. Was there restoration discussed out here? I mean, so what I will say, we found essentially 16 inches of topsoil in an area that should be a wetland, those flags, the D flags. So that means 4 inches of soil has to be removed. The original ANRAD that I filed had a single statement that said the hydric soil in that location was 12 inches below grade. That's why I'm saying 4 inches. So 4 inches of topsoil needs to be removed from inside those D series flags up to D14 in order to get the topsoil down so that it's within 12 inches of the hydric soil. It's always been an ag field, so what would you like to restore it to? I've never seen it as a quote unquote natural wetland. It's always been an agricultural field wetland. So, I mean, we could certainly put shrubs in there. We could put plugs in there of wetland species once we remove the 4 inches. What's your pleasure? And then are you also referring to the isolated wetlands that may have been that are within buffer zone, restoring those?
We're going to need to identify the appropriate restoration actions in a plan for these areas that are newly defined. But I was asking with my question if you could give us an update on the restoration actions we'd already agreed to at the crossing.
As of the time that Emily were out last week, they had not taken the crossing out. So, and I have alerted Frank and Brian that needed to have been taken out by the end of October, and I have not heard back what their plan is.
Okay. So yes, going forward, we need to identify an appropriate restoration plan for the filled area in adjacent to the agricultural field. I don't believe that we had anything in Stockman and Associates contract requesting input on that matter, did we?
I don't believe so, Emily. If that's your understanding, that's my understanding. We didn't ask for.
It was, Cassie, that's correct. It was a very specific scope that the commission had concerns about the accuracy of boundaries and identification of jurisdictional areas, really as it related to what was before you in the 2005 plan. There was no peer review scope or opining on restoration.
Great, thank you. So I think my proposal would be that for the next meeting, we ask for a revised restoration plan to propose a plan for restoring those areas based on what we know to have been the case in, I guess it would have been 2005 before that area was filled, and we can further evaluate it at that point.
Do you know generally if the commission would want plantings, or are we not sure?
If they're going to remove 4 inches of soil to restore, remove the fill, they'll have to do something. And I don't, off the top of my head, have any particular proposal as to what that should be.
And is that also true for the impacts to those IBWs in the buffer zone, or is that just generally impacts to the buffer zone? Doesn't matter if they were IBW or not? Just wondering how that comes into play.
Yeah, I don't think the fact that they're IBW would be relevant.
Yeah, I agree.
We don't,
They're not jurisdictional.
right.
So
So if I may,
Go ahead, Dan.
thank you. So along the bank from D5 to approximately D21, there were 2 isolated wetlands that would be in that buffer zone. One of them was fairly denuded and open. The other one was the very first one we looked at that we called the lollipop wetland just because of the shape of it. That would have been near flags 17 and 16. We have put silt fence up and a wattle. I just looked at it recently after some rains, and there's no movement of any material, but certainly we could revegetate that with, you know, a seed mix or some sort of herbaceous planting. If you wanted shrubs, we could do that as well. I think they would do okay in there. It's fairly shaded, so you're probably not going to get it's not going to support a lot of growth, but and we certainly could put something in there. So again, that would be along the D series, the D15 to D22 series. Out in the field, I would propose to put shrubs. I mean, to me, that's going to give you the best value from a wildlife habitat perspective, from a soil stability perspective. The herbaceous is already there. It's primarily yellow foxtail, which is a facultative species. Was not seeded, but that site is about 99.8% yellow foxtail, that field. So that stuff is in the ground, is going to keep coming up. It's an annual or perennial. It's going to keep coming up every year. So that's, we know we have herbaceous. So if we just, I'll talk with Frank about maybe putting some shrubs in that other area. So from D5, actually D5's off property. So D6 through D14, and that sort of lobe or that shape, that was where I would recommend that we put some shrub plantings. I mean, that's just my idea off the cuff here.
Mm-hmm. And then I think, I'm trying to recall back to the site visit, but I believe part of the concern, and I can't orient exactly to your flags without the 2005 plan that shows the isolated wetlands. But when we were looking at the movement of material in, I think it was the second of the isolated wetlands we looked at, it looked like there were some substantial bank impacts where material had been pushed towards and down the bank, which at that point we were not considering bank, but now that it is, we have bank impacts there as well to be restored.
Well, let's clarify. The regulated bank is at the bottom of that slope you were looking at. We were looking at, quote, what I call physical bank. It's the physical bank of the slope, but the stream bank is down at the bottom of the hill. You see the contours above D19 and D20. That open.
No, yeah. My recollection is that material had been pushed over the edge down into the gully. I might be remembering incorrectly, but
I don't remember that.
Yeah, I'll as part of this process, I'll definitely take another look at that. We'll photograph it, and if it is, we'll work on restoring that as well. and getting that out of there.
We definitely discussed plantings when they were gonna fix the cross.
Yeah, yep. Yeah, we have a plan for the crossing that
Right.
the commission was satisfied with.
Right. It
And
just hasn't been
so,
implemented.
yeah, it just hasn't been implemented yet.
Right. It's the other areas, since now we have a defined wetland, then we now have jurisdiction that we can work towards restoring.
All right, so I know that Thanksgiving is in the midst here. Would November 28th be a reasonable time to expect a new restoration plan to be proposed, or would you like us to push it to the following meeting?
Nope, that's fine. I'm going to be on that meeting for another project, so that sounds fine to me.
All right, great. So we'll look for that on the 28th, as well as an update on what we can expect for implementation timeline for the pieces that should have been complete already.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Thanks, Emily.
Yes.
Kathy, just a quick follow-up question, because it was part of the scope. For the commission's files, would they like me to prepare a brief memo documenting my site visit on the 1st and what I presented here tonight so that you have it on file? Or are you comfortable with the comments that I made in this open forum?
I think it would be helpful if you could submit that in writing, Emily.
Okay, happy to do that. And as I said, it was part of the scope, and I'll make sure to cite that this plan that we have this evening.
Thank you.
Awesome. Great, thank you both.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Good night.
Good night.
All right, I know we have at least one other item that we have folks here for.
Yes.
Do we want to skip ahead?
Yes, please. I'd like to take item 8P out of agenda order.
All right.
Motion to
and
take 8P out of agenda order.
Second.
Roll call vote. August? Week?
Aye.
Whittemore?
Aye.
Ryan?
Aye.
Patrick?
Aye.
Carr?
Aye.
Motion carries. This is 99 Mount Tom Avenue, correct?
That's correct.
All right, so I will need to recuse myself. Jay, can I ask you to take over? Thank you.
Okay. Let me give you this and information for the changes.
Doing a minor change request, so
This is the explanation of that. And I believe we have Michael Saris is here for the site. Yeah, let's see here. Just get myself organized.
Sure.
Michael, are you here?
Yep.
I see your mic right there.
The other one, the other one. Hmm. Okay.
Hi, this is Michael. Are you waiting for me?
Yeah, we're ready for you if you want to
Oh.
give your
I'm
presentation.
so sorry, I didn't hear that.
It's only been a second. It's okay.
Okay, good. Hi, my name is Michael Soares. I'm a wetland scientist with Fuston O'Neill at 1550 Main Street in Springfield. I'm not, has anything been said? If should I provide a summary?
Yeah, if you could provide a summary, that would be helpful.
Sure. So as if you're familiar with the project, we've been working on a stream restoration on Brookyard Brook, which is just east of Mount Tom Avenue and Cherry Street. It's in association with the repaired outfall and some wetland restoration in that area. The original scope of work describes the removal of some of the debris left behind by the outfall that failed at that location, some concrete and stone. And while it's in the scope of work, the plans that were submitted do not quite capture that location. It's a very small area. It's just right on the edge of a very small BVW that is across from that outfall that's been recently reconstructed. And it's just sort of a clerical error that that limit of work did not include this area. It's very small. I would say it's some of the debris is within the limit of work in the BVW and in the stream in the LUWW. There are a few pieces, I would say maybe 6 to 8 feet just south of the BVW and away from the bank. And what we'd like to do is complete the restoration in that area and have that debris removed so that we have the natural bank conditions that will allow the stream to be a little more flexible in that area. The total amount of material, it's hard to say. You know, it's been buried there for some decades, I would imagine. But there are at least 2 kind of larger pieces of debris, a few blocks that are in the stream that could be carried out by hand. What we're hoping is that we can have a minor change and allow the contractor to go in, not with any equipment, just having staff go down there and remove the outfall, the debris from the old outfall by hand. If any pieces are too large to carry out of there, they would be broken up in place and then carried out. So the goal is to remove that that material so that the stream, right now, one of the pieces in particular, and all of them for that matter, are basically functioning as limiters on the stream having a natural bank. One in particular is sort of created kind of a hard edge to the river right bank. And what we'd like to do is complete the restoration there by removing those pieces and allowing, you know, natural fluvial systems to reshape the channel now that the outfall has been repaired. So we're seeking just an approval from the commission that the contractor can have his workers go in there and remove that debris. There also are a few invasive species in that location. I think a small handful of burning bush, you know, woody stems in the location that we'd also like to have removed. I do have a couple of pictures. I could show you the pictures to give you a better idea of the location. Or if you would prefer to ask questions first, we could do that.
Show the pictures. I made you a co-host, so you should be able to. Let me know if it gives you
Okay,
trouble,
great.
because I think I have them too, if you can't, it's not working for you.
Yeah, I have them here. Let me just figure out. Okay. Can you all see that?
We're getting there. There we go. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry. Sorry to rush.
No, it looks good.
Okay. Great. Thank you, Cassie. One more. I just need to close the door. I'll be back in half a second. I apologize. My family's coming back in from a basketball practice. So here we are looking from the river right side of Brickyard Brook towards the outfall. I don't know. Can you see my cursor when the cursor is moving?
Yes.
Okay, great. So our BVW line is pretty much where this tree is crossing over Brickyard Brook. If you can see, there's a pink BVW flag right here on this standing tree. That is the upstream limit of the BVW. So this photograph is from the perspective of, you know, outside the BVW looking across towards Cherry Street. And you can see in the foreground, here are some what look like, you know, stones or boulders, but these are parts of the failed outfall. They're just outside of the BVW. So let me show another photo. This is similar side, a little higher up the slope on that river right side, looking down. Here again is that same BVW flag.
Sorry, Michael, we're not seeing the other photo. We're still in the first image.
Okay, let me wait. I'm looking at it. That's interesting. Still the first one?
Yeah, I have these. I know you sent them to me, so I can pull it up if you like.
Yeah, if you could, I'm sorry, I'm not sure why that's not working. If you could share, and I will just sort of comment as I can.
Okay, hold on just a
Sorry for
second.
that.
Okay. There's always some
I
kind
think
of
the network's
technical.
just really slow. It refreshed just before turned off screen sharing.
Really?
It finally came
Yeah,
through.
just a
Yes.
second. Yeah, I think there's just network slowness.
I saw it too.
It's just kind of, can everybody see this? Okay. Michael, I know you were talking about.
The second picture, it's pretty much the same as the first. Hope we can go down. Well, that's, I'm sorry, yeah, if you can go up one, Cassie, thank you,
Okay.
that first one. This is from standing in Brickyard Brook, kind of looking downstream. And what Cassie is going over there is one large piece of the failed outfall that this is where we're talking about, we're kind of having a hardened edge to the bank. And in particular, being right across from the outfall, we would not like to have a restrictive element right there. We would like water to come out of the outfall and dissipate if possible. We also can see that Brickyard Brook at this place is sort of coming around a right bend, if you will. And this bank will probably migrate more to the right over time. And so having this debris in this particular location could be a limiting factor to sort of natural riverine processes that we want to try to allow to reestablish the stream and allow to adapt as any way it would see fit. So this piece right here, it goes under the tree, but the tree is not supporting it. We've determined that. So the piece would be able to be removed and still leave that large log in place.
Michael, once you remove those stones, what happens to keep that stable until it can grow in or whatever?
I think that's something the commission can consider. I mean, one way to look at this, I know that the Scott from SWCA and maybe somebody else had suggested that a core log could be installed for some temporary stability for this small section of bank. That would work. I do think just for we're not exposing a large linear area of bank. This is a very localized location. And I do think we want not that we want to promote sedimentation or anything like that, but we do want the system to remain adaptable here. And so I would say once this is removed, given how small of an area it is, that I don't think it really needs anything to be to reduce sedimentation. I don't think there's going to be a lot that's coming out of this location. It's really kind of a small grouping of stones that have been left here by the outfall. So the one preference is to just take it out and let the natural processes continue. If some stability is wanted by the commission, I think a core log along here would be sufficient to make sure the bank itself that's on that wetted edge against the water would be protected from losing a lot of sediment.
And just something, because I think we're past our growing season. It's going to be months before anything really can take place there. So just something to make sure that doesn't become a problem.
Yeah, I think SCWA's comment in a discussion with my coworker Melissa was to have a core log there to provide some of that stability. So I'm sorry, go ahead. If anybody has
other questions from commissioners? Not for me.
Once they put that log in, is that temporary?
That's a temporary control on that surface after the stones are removed.
Yeah, a core log is it's similar to like a biodegradable silt sock, if you will. So it's
You can kind of see it in the second picture here.
Okay,
Gosh,
it's
just
like a
barely.
waddle, so.
Yeah,
yeah,
it's like a
waddles,
beefier.
right.
And
Yeah.
by design, it would be, you'd want it to be temporary because
Yes,
ideally
you
the
want
stream
straight.
will kind of be able to flow this way away from this kind of bank that they're trying to restore.
Okay.
The piece of rock is kind of just below this log here, that this is the opposite bank. The stream is right in between that area and this cofferdam. So in theory, you wouldn't want to stabilize it permanently because you want
Correct.
the water to be naturally kind of start going away from there.
Right, correct. Dan or Sarah, any concerns, questions?
Oh, Sarah just thought that. Oh no, she's there. Oh.
She's
Yeah.
there.
No, I have no concerns and I feel fine about authorizing the removal of the
Okay.
debris. I like the idea of the core log,
Sure.
although I
You-
think, yeah, the ground's gonna freeze soon anyway, but in the spring, there could be some erosions.
It was 70 last week.
Right.
Dan, any concerns?
So just so I understand correctly, this is the right bank, and the right bank is also the outside of a bend in the stream. Is that correct?
Yes, it is the right bank, and there is just upstream. There is sort of a gradual bend from right to left coming into where where this debris is located, and given that low kind of that low terrace that the log is sitting on that we're looking at, and then immediately on the left of this image is where the BVW is starting. So it is plausible that over time, as flood events occur, that the right bank that we're looking at in this picture will be starting to kind of be pushed more to its own right, and the debris in place is in that location. So as it comes into the outfall area, it's straightening out a little bit, but there's sort of a bend to it. On the outer bend is on the side where the debris is located. I'm sorry if I can explain it better, I will try. If you have a follow-up clarification, I'm sorry.
Yes.
I feel
So
like I have
the
an
outside
image.
of the bend is where the debris
Thank
is.
you. That's a good one.
This one?
No, I think it's the last one, shows the stream kind of, yeah, so this is looking upstream. You can see the cofferdam, and there's a slight bend as that stream is coming down towards that log and then going underneath the log, and the debris is just in the foreground on the right
Yep.
foreground.
Is it just debris on basically the surface that's visible on the bank, or is there debris going buried back into the soil at all? And
I'm not sure how much probing has been done. I would suspect, because it's been there for some number of years, that there's probably some burial. So it's hard to say if it's completely on. I don't think it's completely on the surface. It's probably somewhat lodged in some sediments that were deposited either around it or on top of it.
how far are you going if you find more, or if you take debris and you find debris back, that becomes visible underneath, will you keep going, or do you?
Yeah, no, we've discussed this, and our approach has been that to give the stream its ability to kind of move laterally, if it ends up doing that, is that we would stop any removal of material once we felt like we were below about three inches or so of the existing stream bed. So that's to say, if they notice that the block goes down several feet, they would not continue to chase it down into the soil. That they would find a location, about 3 or 6 inches below where the existing substrate is of the channel, and just take down a little bit below that, so that the stream has its ability to move laterally. I think it's a mix of small stuff that can just be kind of picked up and walked out, and it looks like there might be 2 larger pieces that they'll have to maybe break up the what we can see on top and kind of figure out how far down it goes, if it goes down very far. It's been a little bit hard to tell.
Mhm. Is this where the head wall was and it just kind of flopped, or does was the head wall, the streams migrated back behind it? I'm just trying to get like a sense for how how things have come to be.
It's a great question. I've had the same question because it seems to be a slight hair upstream of where you see the new outfall.
Mhm.
It's possible that the other outfall was much larger and had a lot more material, a lot more structural material involved, a lot more concrete and stone. And as it deteriorated and ended up falling apart, maybe in a really big event from an upstream, high water event, it kind of pitched forward and then was splayed out to where we have found it now. But as far as we can tell, it's associated with the earlier outfall that failed.
Okay. But it's basically it's just going from the bank and then mostly horizontally into the bank. You're going to be careful not to go down vertically too much so that you wouldn't start a grade control issue or anything like that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the goal is just to kind of take this hardening off of the bank and out of that immediate area next to the down tree, and really just sort of pluck it up and out. And if it goes down deeper, they will only go down as deep as the elevation of the existing stream bed bottom, stream channel bottom, and no deeper, in order to not create an artificially deep location, which would lead to scour and bank failure and other things like that. So we want to make sure we're just removing the material so that if the channel does migrate in that direction, that it has the opportunity to do so and nothing to hinder that.
Yep. Okay.
All right, so Michael, no heavy equipment, just going to be hand removal. You're going to remove some invasives while you're there, and you'll put some kind of protection on it just to make sure erosion in the short term isn't an issue.
Yes, yeah, that is all true.
You okay with this being a minor change?
I think so, yeah.
We need a motion for this, or
I think we should just.
Can I get a motion that this is a minor change and that they'll follow the procedures that we discussed?
I will make the motion to approve a minor change as articulated in the letter that we were sent.
Okay. Is there a second? Second. Do a roll call vote. Commissioner August, Commissioner Weeks, Commissioner Whitmore. Aye. Commissioner Buttrick.
Aye.
I don't know if Commissioner Carr is still here.
She, I think, has left.
Okay, so I'm going to say the motion carries.
Okay. I think that was the only thing, correct, Michael? I don't think there was any other change request.
That's all we have. That's correct. Thank you very much, everybody. I appreciate your time.
Thanks for your time.
Have a good evening. Thank you.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right.
I'm gonna get Julie, and then I have a request for another item out of order. Item 8V for the Eversource project. Yeah, come on back.
Z.
Z. We're not quite to Z yet. So you want to make a motion to take that item out of order?
Motion to take 8V out of order. Okay.
All those in favor, roll call vote. August. Weeks.
Aye.
Whittemore.
Aye.
Ryan.
Aye.
Buttrick.
This isn't anything that Ty and Bond's involved with, is it? I have no.
No.
idea.
I
Okay.
don't believe it's ESC group.
Okay. Aye.
And Commissioner Hall, I think is.
And Commissioner Carr, I think, has to leave, so,
left, yes.
motion carries. So, this is Eversource Energy 19B15/19B16, line right of way off of North Street, Mass DEP file number 1510320 for upgrades to the utility line, map 110, lot 19.
Yes, hi, good evening, Melissa. Melissa Kaplan with BSC Group. Jonathan Roberts is also on from Eversource. They were about to start matting that structure 11286 along the Connecticut River, and they need to shift the matting around a little bit. The good news is that it will shift it about 30 feet out of the wetland. And since it's a change, we wanted to run that by you. Let me share my screen. Hold on one second.
Yeah, sorry. Make sure that you're the co-host.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. Let's see. Yeah, there we go. And I'll make Jonathan one too, just in case. Should be able to go now.
Your entire screen, I think, should do it. Okay, do you see the map?
Yes.
Okay, so this orange square is the new outline of what they need. The yellow with the black around it was what we submitted with the NOI. So you can see it's shifting this way. And then they need this little portion here, this extra little piece here, to get to this side of the structure, because there is another, as you know, there's another old structure here. And Eversource is also, while they're in here, going to go ahead and remove that old structure because it's not serving any purpose right now. It's an old, not being used structure. So they want to go in and take that out while they have all this long matting and big work pad here to avoid, future repetitive impacts. The other part of this is when the contractor went in here to stake out the matting for the limits as per the order of conditions, they realized that there were a couple of small trees, like 4 to 5 dBH over here, that need to be removed. They weren't necessarily included in the total of 8 that we proposed in the filing, but with this shift, we are eliminating the need to remove some of the larger trees. And so then there's these smaller trees. So it's still 8 trees, just a smaller size that are being removed. So that's the other change. So that's essentially, we submitted a field change letter to Cassie today. It has a summary of what we're proposing, this map, and some photos. If you want, I can go over the photos. Or if you have any questions. We are just a little, I'm sorry. Yeah, I was just going to say a little bit more detail on, there's a reduction of obviously impacts in this area of, hold on, I have the numbers up here. Let me get that for you. We are reducing the footprint of the overall matting by 3,475 square feet and a reduction in the wetlands of 1,450 square feet.
Great. And is the long entry matting, is that shifting as well, or is it just the pad area?
The matting shifted to the other side in here, just because of the way they needed to come in. It shifted over here to this side. I think we had it over here. So that also changed. One of the trees is no longer needing to be removed. That was like on this corner. So it did shift over here.
So the whole alignment of the matting moving, or I don't think I have the original.
Yeah, this square was the original, what we submitted in the order, in the notice of intent.
Right, I understand the pad area, but for the long linear piece leading up to the pad, you're saying that shifted as well, and I don't remember where that was before.
It was coming in through here and kind of here. I don't know if here I can draw on here. So it was coming, oops, wrong thing, sorry. It was coming in like, why does it keep doing that? I keep clicking the line and it's making a square. Sorry about that.
Bluebeam does that to me all day, every day.
I hate Bluebeam, I'm telling you. We switched to Bluebeam. Oh my goodness. All right, we're going to try to draw a straight line. Okay, here we go. So it was more like,
you're still clicking.
I don't know why it's doing that, but it was more like this. it's coming this way. But again, you know, the matting, the temporary matting, it's temporary. It's a best management practice. It's all part of the, you know, exempt utility maintenance, as is any of the tower removals and things like anything, you know, needed to do that. So I just, it did shift, but shifted over here.
The black line is your right of way, correct?
The black line is the property boundary. This color, like pink salmon, means it's Eversource property. The right of way, kind of the transmission line right of way is over here. So the right of way does kind of continue here, but this is the distribution right of way that comes out of the sub. So it's kind of a crisscross in here. So, oh, and they did have to shift the matting over because this is a 3-pole structure. You can see it right here. So and it has guy wires. So they couldn't come this way. So they had to come this way.
It looks like from the plan that you originally submitted that you've moved the matting outside of your right of way or Eversource property. Am I misunderstanding that?
Which one, the work pad or the access?
The access.
This is Mount Tom generating facility property. This property, so it was not, it technically was Mount Tom's property, and we did shift it over a little bit.
That's the property on the outside along the river?
Correct.
Okay.
I think it still might be part of the right of way, but that is, I'm not sure how wide the right of way is there. These are not the right of way limits. These are property lines.
We have a different legend on the original that shows the black line as the existing right of way. So that's where the confusion, I think, is coming from.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't have it on this. It does say existing right of way, doesn't. That is not correct. Apologize. It is supposed to be the property line.
So this is all still on Eversource property?
It is not. The work pad is, yes. Well, I'm sorry. It is half on Eversource, half on Mount Tom generating facility property. And they have given us their approval. And we have easements to be in there.
And the additional foundation for that additional structure is being removed, correct?
Correct. It's very large. It's like 15 by 15 by 10. So it'd be a you know, a lot of space opening up for flood storage there.
And will that be filled back to existing grade? What's the proposal there?
Yeah, it'll meet with the vegetation management plan, the invasive management plan that we submitted, and what we stated in the NOI, where it will be stabilized, leveled, stabilized, and seeded.
And these the trees you mentioned, it's 4 to 5. Are these meters or inches? There's no.
You can see them here. I didn't measure them. I mean, they're pretty small, but they're literally coming out of the inside of the foundation. They're covered in vines. This is like, you know, it's actually October, but it was October a few years ago, and this is when we went out with Cassie on last week.
The photos, I'm looking at photo 3, show trees that are flagged for removal that are not adjacent to foundation, correct?
Correct. This is the other side. This is the ones that are small that they've added, that we are saying that we're adding in. But then over here, there's several that are not, larger ones that are not being removed. Like these two are not being removed. There's one back behind here that you can't see that's not being removed. And you can see in the background the transmission structure that was supposed to come in kind of where this guy's standing, and you can see there's just not a way to come in that way.
So is the total number of trees being removed less than it was before? The
Same amount each. If you're not, but not counting,
Okay.
sorry, not counting the 4 that are associated with this removal, which is an exempt utilities activity.
I have no further questions. Any other questions from the commission? Okay. I think this is fine for a minor change. Any, would anyone care to make a motion?
I'll move that we approve a minor change for Eversource Energy right of way project.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Roll call vote. August? Weeks?
Aye.
Whittemore?
Aye.
Ryan?
Aye.
Patrick?
Aye.
Motion carries. So the minutes will reflect that we've approved a minor change in accordance with the discussion. So thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
All right.
Okay.
Jumping back to order.
Well, actually, I have another one I'd like to get out of order. We have an attendee for it. So general business, item 9B, this is for City Councilor Owen Zaret is here to speak about a B City proposal.
Motion to take 9B out of order.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, Commissioner August?
Aye.
Weeks?
Aye.
Whittemore?
Aye.
Ryan?
Aye.
Patrick?
Aye.
Motion carries. Welcome, Councilor Zaret.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for all you do. I recognize that you're already 2 hours into a meeting, so I don't want to take up too much of your time, but want to just give you a kind of a broad overview of this proposal. And the purpose of me speaking here is to just provide some brief information, field some questions, and certainly as well to potentially garner the support of the Conservation Commission anyway on this project. So one of my visions as a counselor for a while has been trying to figure out how we can, as a city, move more in a direction of being very purposeful in terms of creating and protecting spaces for our natural pollinators, our bees, our butterflies, insects, birds, etc. And in doing so, create policy around native plantings. The two are intricately enmeshed with each other, as you all know. And so I've been thinking about ways to try to write policy that would, one, look to create, establish, identify, and maintain pollinator spaces, native plant spaces throughout the city. Two, in conjunction with that, develop municipal policies around native plantings, both for municipal requirements, potentially commercial properties and development as well. Three, look at some pesticide policies. And then four, obviously, try to find ways to educate our residents around the importance of protecting, establishing, expanding pollinator spaces and the use of native plantings. And so during my background research, I spent a lot of time with the Massachusetts Pollinator Network, sitting out on meetings, have talked to folks from the Native Plant Trust, also from Arcadia, and the Audubon, as well as obviously our conservation agent, and spent a lot of time bothering our city planner to encourage him to consider supporting policy around this. And in doing so, I discovered a program through the Xerxes Society called the Bee City program, which basically encapsulates everything I just described. So instead of trying to reinvent the wheel and find an Easthampton way to kind of bring all these policy ideas together, I am hoping to propose that the city adapt the Bee City program to kind of pursue all these policy points that I just enumerated. And basically what that entails is an application to the Bay City program, which includes submission of a resolution to the city council that promises to do all of these things and form a committee that would explore these policy items. So it's not necessarily promising that we're going to do any of these things, but it's promising that we're going to move forward with the intention to explore that. So nothing we're talking about here is obviously set in stone, although I would certainly like it to be, or at least set in soil. And so I'm hoping to move forward with this over the next month or so in a submission to the city council with the resolution that would also include, I'm thinking a draft language, draft ordinance language to form this committee, which would probably be called something like the Ecological Sustainability Committee, because in speaking with the planner, it sounds like there are things that would fall under this umbrella that would extend beyond just this project alone. And so it potentially behooves the city to create a committee that would include stakeholders such as planning, conservation, potentially agricultural commission, and then city councilors and residents to continue to explore ecologically sustainable policies through the city. Certainly in the immediate term, it would be some of these items that we're talking about, but going forward, it sounds like there are some potential interests from the city to continue to expand our ecological responsibility and sustainable practices. I saw on this agenda, and the conservation agent I've been talking about too, introducing a wetlands ordinance. That would be potentially something that could run through that committee outside or after conservation commission has worked on it, just in terms of liaisoning with the city council. So that's it in a nutshell. I can field questions. I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I can answer questions, field questions, talk more about the vision and what this process would include. So I'll stop talking now and kind of open it up to members of your committee.
Comments or questions?
Oh, no real concerns about it.
No concern. I've just got a question of my own. I have modified my front yard much along these lines. And I noticed I see many bumblebees. I saw one honeybee all summer.
Okay.
And does the city license commercial honeybee hives? Do we have any sense of how active the apiary community is in Easthampton?
A lot of the farmers that are growing and have orchards have their own bees and
Yeah,
things like that.
and I've noticed one hive box along East Street.
Okay.
And that's the only one I've seen in my driving around. And I'm sure if I go north in Valley, they're all over the place. But I was just curious if there's an existing body of knowledge as to, honeybee culture in town.
I feel like the answer is probably yes, but I couldn't point you to those individuals. Yeah. Oh, and this is a great effort, and I for one support it, and thank you for sharing information with us. And I think we would be quite interested in continuing to hear more about this as you move forward.
Great. Obviously, ultimately, any sort of letter of support from the commission is appreciated, but I also understand that this is a 5-minute conversation. So I just wanted to put that out there. And just to answer the member's question too, as well, about apiaries with the city, I think that's a really great question. And I think part of this whole initiative would certainly lend towards starting to think about not just obviously what we're planting, but also the fostering of natural pollinators and certainly bees. There's a resident that I got in touch with apropos of some projects that will dovetail with this through the Conway School, and one of them is a local beekeeper. And I think that's a very poignant question to ask. Can we start doing resident educational programs on beekeeping, and I would also make that just part of this initiative as well. So I just wanted to leave that out there as well. Anything else I can answer or say about this?
I just have a question. Owen, so you're talking about a letter of support, and you were saying that you wanted to try to potentially bring this resolution to the city council within a month or so. Would it be helpful for the commission to issue vote to issue some kind of letter of support that I could draft? That we like it, because normally the commission votes to issue a letter of support. I don't have one written, but if the commission generally is supportive of that, I don't know if you would need letters of support for your resolution presentation to the city council, but the commission.
Yeah. Do we know what the proposal is though at this point?
We have a copy here.
Join.
Would that be helpful, Owen, to have a letter for that process?
That would be incredibly helpful. So currently I've received pledges for, actually I've received one letter so far from Tom. I'm going to ruin his name. I apologize. Lautzenheiser from Autobahn. I don't know if, then David Falk from the Native Plant Trust is going to write a letter, as well as Rosemary Malfi from the Mass Pollinator Network. So I apologize. I probably should have submitted more materials to you, and I didn't mean to spring on you this request for a letter, but if that's something that the commission's willing to do, and I think, did I see your meeting at some other time in a few weeks again?
On the 28th, we'll be meeting again.
I mean, I could submit some more info if you feel you need it, in terms of including the sample resolution. I'm considering submitting, and as well as just some of the sample language that I would probably include with it, which would include some draft language again around the ordinance to form this committee, the planting list, Cassie, that you've helped develop, and just some general policy ideas as well.
I was able to find the draft resolution language that they have, like the boilerplate on the Bee City website. If it's not much deviating from that, maybe that's what the commission needs to see for a letter of support, and I would just write something that generally supports.
And I would be very grateful for that. Yeah, it's basically going to be that. I don't think I'll have to tweak the language much at all.
Okay, I'm good.
Yeah, if there are additional specific policies and things, we might want to look at those before
the
letter supports them. But I think in general, we're definitely supporting the idea.
Yep. Okay, so I guess does the commission want to wait until I can write a draft, have it ready for the next meeting, and then the commission can vote to issue the letter?
Oh, and when are you intending to take this to council?
I think I want to submit it for the December 7th packet. So that would be a December 1st deadline. So I can submit some more materials for you for your meeting on the 28th, if that helps. I mean, obviously keep in mind that, these would be just kind of more food for thought, because ultimately by the committee being formed, a lot of the deliberation happening there would be where a lot of these policies are for. But I wanted to try to front load, get kind of jumpstart that committee with some ideas at least. But I'm happy to submit whatever you need, whatever you feel you would need in terms of being able to generate a letter.
So to clarify, is the request now just for a letter to support establishing the committee and joining as a member of Bee City USA?
Yes.
Okay. I think that's something that we can probably respond to now.
I don't have a problem with it.
Great. Yeah.
So I'll make that motion.
Do we have a second? All those in favor? August? Aye. Weeks?
Aye.
Whittemore?
Aye.
Ryan?
Aye.
Fletcher?
Aye.
And carries. So Cassie, if you would draft a letter supporting those aspects of this, and then we would happily take any other materials that you want to pass along, Owen, as it progresses. But we're happy to put the letter together.
Great. Thank you so much. And I'm going to stay on. I'm curious to hear about the wetlands ordinance, so I'm just going to stay on and listen to the call if that's okay.
You're probably going to be disappointed because there won't be much discussion. But you're welcome to stay.
It was generally paused because I was working on the Green Communities annual report. Now I'm done with that, and I'm thinking next meeting, we're really gonna pick it back up in earnest.
Okay, then I'm going to log off, but I'm very grateful. And I'll send along some more materials, just some things I've been working on, as well as kind of existing letters around this too, just for the sake of thoroughness and transparency with the committee. And thank you for having me.
Okay, thank you.
Good night.
Thanks. Good night.
All right, returning to regular order. Were there any open space updates on Echodale?
Yeah, there's one. So they are going to be going out there, Land Stewardship Inc., to do the cut stem treatment for the fall tomorrow. She's going to complete it tomorrow. And the other update for the Conway School design project is that they're going to be doing a like kind of midway presentation. It's not the final presentation by any means, but that's going to be this Friday, and I can distribute the link if anybody wants to attend it. There just won't be time for comments during that presentation. She's also going to give me a recording and like the slides, so I can send that around instead if people can't make it. There will likely be another final presentation at the end as well.
Excellent. Yeah, if you could send that around, that would be great.
Yeah, definitely.
Particularly the recording.
Yes. Okay.
All right, compliance updates. Are there any other projects we needed to discuss that have not already been addressed?
Okay. Yes. Yes, I did have one. If you hold on just a second. The next one that I had was for the school. No, I know that was highlighted. I fixed it this morning. That probably doesn't reflect what I needed to do. I'm sorry, Jay. That was like, I didn't update until today. No, the only one that I didn't have any updates for 6973, though it was previously highlighted. All the reports are up to, for those projects in City Florence and things like that. Those are all up to date. So for the most recent storm that this was this weekend, I need to get those reports. But I did have an update, a substantive update for Easthampton School Committee. This should be item 8I. Yeah, the school. They have a question regarding the permanent monuments that are required. They have submitted a sample type of marker. You wanted to make sure this marker was sufficient to the commission, and also a plan of where they wanted to put the markers. The order condition stipulates that there's going to be a permanent, and this is they typed up the order, the conditions they were precise.
Kathy, I think we decided that you could make a call on things like this, unless there was something particular that you wanted us to respond to. Did you have any questions or concerns?
I did have a question, if I can, for the tree line. There's only one place where it is pretty far back within the tree line, and I didn't know if the commission preferred it to be, let's see, at the tree line or rather at the wetlands, just in case there was ever like any tree clearing work in the future. I guess generally though, is there a preference in the condition? It says whether it's closer.
So the question or the condition reads, this is that language, right?
Yeah.
Install permanent monuments at no greater than 25-foot intervals along something. There's clear to be some words missing that are clearly visible and demarcate the 25-foot no disturbance setback from wetlands or the tree line, whichever is closer to the wetland. 25-foot no disturb setback or the tree line, whichever is closer
to the wetland, which will
whichever is farther.
Yeah, the language confused me, and I didn't write this order, so I wasn't sure if the intent was.
I guess maybe the intent is that if there's already been existing disturbance within 25 feet, we're just asking them to keep whatever's left. That wording seems odd.
Yeah.
We might want to revisit that for future. If that's still part of the boilerplate.
I don't think it's written the same way anymore.
Okay.
I know I can't find it on the plan exactly where it was, but I guess could be answered just generally like, is it okay to have it, would it be better to just have it along the tree line, or would you want it kind of just in the woods to be discovered upon if there were happened to be any tree clearing into the future?
When you put it that way, I would say it should be at the tree line. Because it's not really the markers aren't intended to mark the wetland boundary. They're intended to mark the no disturb boundary, correct?
Right, right.
So yeah, I would say probably the tree line. What are other thoughts?
I'm fine with that. Tree line makes sense to me.
And to that end, if this is their intent for the verbiage on the markers, which say wetlands do not disturb,
I believe so.
that's a bit misleading since we're not actually marking the wetland line,
Okay.
but the no disturb zone to the wetland. So
Okay.
that may just be a source of confusion
Okay.
in the future if that's not phrased a bit differently.
Wetland buffer.
Yeah, wetland buffers not disturb would be clear.
Okay. Okay, sorry. Yeah, I forgot that I can just do that.
Yep.
Sorry.
Not a problem.
Okay, sweet. But generally, I mean, this type of marker has not yet been presented, but I know that that's what they use for like utility right of ways and things like that. So
What was that marker on Treehouse Circle? Remember, we thought that was the buffer zone marker?
oh yeah, the stone
But it-
marker, that one,
But that marker was actually,
it's a little different. It's different than I think what the commission would now typically require. I think it was, there's no wording on it. I know, I remember, I can't remember exactly what it was, but something else,
you're getting close to the wetland.
something like that. Okay, cool.
Other updates?
Double checking. No, there are not.
That's it. General business, meeting minutes from October 17th. Do we have a motion to approve? It's on those who's reviewed already.
Motion to approve the minutes from October 17th.
Do we have a second? All those in favor? August? Weeks?
Aye.
I
Whittemore?
was absent, but I reviewed it and
Ryan?
Aye.
Patrick?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. We've already dealt with item B, the draft 2023 meeting schedule. I
Yeah.
suppose we probably should not put that off. It's
Did I see
rapidly
that?
approaching.
Yep.
Where was that?
Oh man, it was attached in one of my emails.
Oh, that's where.
I have a copy here if you want to look at it. The highlighted dates are April 10th, October 23rd, November 27th, and December 11th. Mainly, specifically for October 23rd and December 11th. I believe those ones is the question. For October 23rd and December, those are one of the ones where we only, if one of the days falls on a holiday, and so we only have one meeting that month. What we did this October was we had the meeting be in like the center of the month outside of the normal second and fourth Monday. Instead, rather we just did it whatever like the most central Monday was. Wanted to know if the commissioners want to do that again this year, or excuse me, this coming year for October. December, I feel like, I don't know if it makes as much sense because it seems like the closer you get to Christmas, the less likely it is that we would have quorum. So seemingly sticking with the second, which we did this year, seems reasonable. On the schedule there, I believe the way that I have it for October is just, is not the central date. I think it's, what I have there.
And so what is the conflict in October?
Oh, let me double check here.
Is the 9th is Indigenous Peoples' Day,
That's correct. So yeah, I believe it's just Indigenous Peoples' Day that is the
Okay.
conflict.
and there wouldn't be any conflict on the 16th. So, so right now we have a full month between the September and October meeting and 3 weeks between the October and first November meeting. So if we shifted it earlier, we'd just be flipping that ratio. So unless we want to add another meeting, I don't know that there's much point in diverging.
Do you feel like it was okay not having two meetings in October this year? Generally,
Did we not have, we didn't have
we
to?
only had one. We had it on the 17th, I believe, of October.
I don't remember it being a major issue. We entertained the idea of a special meeting, but it never came to pass.
Correct.
We always have that option.
Right, that's true.
If things are
But
busy.
there was
So
a
yeah,
lot going on.
let's leave it as is then, I think. That's a good
Okay.
one.
And then do you want to do the same for the December? Mainly, my thought process is, so the second is on the 11th. I've left it on the 11th on that schedule because, again, we just get closer to the 25th,
Yeah.
which seems not ideal.
2 weeks from the 11th, right on Christmas, so.
There's usually not much happening.
I don't know if this would screw up things meeting room wise, but if we went the week, if we went the week before October 23rd, or no, if we went the first Monday in November, like the 6th, and then that would bring us a little bit closer to bring us a little closer to October, and then we could get another meeting on the third Wednesday in November. And sort of like divide things up a little bit better. It wouldn't necessarily give an extra meeting. No, it would give an extra meeting, possibly.
So rather than 13th and 27th, you're proposing the 6th and 20th?
Yes.
November.
How does that's not an extra meeting though. Where's the extra come in?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it would help with the one meeting in December, possibly.
I guess we could do the 4th and 18th of December, but that really throws off the entire predictability of our schedule as being the whatever it's supposed to be, first and third.
True.
Usually not that much going on.
So we're thinking November will being the 13th and the 27th, and then December will be just the 11th. Choosing to stay with the normal meeting pattern over having extra meetings.
I think that makes more sense.
Okay.
Something was to come up that was big, we could decide to have another meeting.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's, yeah.
And then what's the other one I have highlighted? April 10th? I just want to remember why did I do that?
Patriots Day,
on the 24th?
maybe.
Wait, when is that?
Patriots Day would probably be April 17th.
Oh yeah, Patriots Day is 17th. On the 10th, it's just the day after Easter Sunday. So I didn't know if people were going to be able to meet then or not. I don't know if people normally, does that matter? On Easter Monday? It's marked on the calendar as like an observed thing. I didn't know if that was potentially conflicting for people. I don't remember that being a thing.
I've never heard of
I
it.
never had either. I never had either.
Friday before, yes.
Yeah.
I'm not aware of it as a holiday.
All right,
So
cool.
I don't think there's any issue there.
Cool, let's leave it then.
Yeah. So I
And
think
you got
we're-
my note?
I did. Yes, I fixed it on there. It said 2022 on the top now. It says 2023, which is probably the better thing to do.
Probably. All right.
Very pretty good
excellent.
catch.
I was gonna go to.
All right, so we're good there.
Yes.
Last item with the wetlands ordinance discussion, which I think we've already hinted, we don't have anything new for. So we'll push that again.
Yes, and what
A major step being to schedule a meeting for the subcommittee.
exactly right.
Okay. Do you have a
Motion to
motion to
adjourn?
adjourn?
Second.
All those in favor, August? Weeks?
Aye.
Whittemore?
Aye.
Ryan?
Aye.
Buttrick?
Aye.
Motion carries. It is 8:23, and I am closing this meeting of the Easthampton Conservation Commission. Our next meeting will be November 28th at 6 p.m.
Okay,
Thank
I'm
you.
gonna stop the
This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.